Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Williamson, at Williamson NFL. It's a mailbag day. It's kind of a weird day, obviously. I'm recording this on Halloween. Happy Halloween to you. I'm sure you'll be hearing it the day after. Then we'll take the weekend off. I have some general Steeler midseason things to discuss, and then we'll start breaking down Washington. Maybe have another mailbag next week as well. But my man, Michael Adesso, is great about, thank you, Michael, about giving really good questions. And I've noticed with the questions I picked, and there's a lot of good ones, there's a bit of a theme I've been meaning to talk about anyways, and you guys kind of beat me to it. So let's start. We'll get into that in a minute. But first off, Matt, as we sit here today, is Russell Wilson a Hall of Fame quarterback? If not yet, what does he need to do the rest of his career to become that? So I find it interesting because I remember the day he was traded to Denver. I was asked on some national radio thing or whatever, is Russell Wilson a Hall of Famer if he never plays another snap? If he were to retire the day of the trade? I gave it some thought and I said yes, I think so. I think everything that he did in Seattle is enough to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. But now, I'm not sure. I mean, his Denver stint definitely hurt his cause. You know, I mean, if you did enough in Seattle, though, shouldn't you already be in? You know, how can adding anything to that make it worse? Well, these are human beings that vote. And if the last thing in your mind is getting sit down the last 2 weeks and then getting released and just not living up to expectations, period, in Denver, then I think he probably would go, but it would not be a slam dunk and certainly not first ballot. But I think he's going to lead the Steelers to the playoffs this year. He's only played 2 games, but if he plays anything close to this level for the rest of this season, my hunch is he will be the Steelers quarterback next year. And that's something we'll talk about a lot more. I don't know that for sure. And if he can play at a reasonably close level to what we've seen the last 2 weeks for another year or two, and again, taking a team to the playoffs and elevating them the way he has might be enough to be like, okay, maybe that was just a blip in the radar in Denver. So I lean towards yes. I lean strongly towards he eventually will get in because of what we've seen, in a Steeler uniform. And I think another playoff appearance would be probably enough, let alone a playoff win or two. I mean, if he could take the team to the AFC Championship game or something, I think you could seal the deal. Even if he fades away slow like Ben and Eli and Ryan and a lot of those quarterbacks did, at the end of his career, 2-3 years from now. So Michael also asks, putting aside the obvious wide receiver discussion, is there another position the Steelers could trade for realistically? Maybe D-line or outside corner help. The D-line thing's what I want to touch on. It doesn't sound like Adams is due back anytime soon. It does sound like Trice should be available sooner than later as your third corner. And Sutton is available now, and he can be your outside corner too. So I don't think corner is a problem area. I mean, if you were to, heaven forbid, lose one of your top 2 corners, Porter goes down, your starters would be Jackson and Sutton, and Beanie would be your slot. So you can live with that. It's not perfect, of course, but generally speaking, I mentioned actually on yesterday's pod, I'd give you next to nothing for like Evan Neal, with the Giants, just because tackles and maybe he can push Broderick Jones, or maybe a change of scenery could, change his career. A high pedigree, very talented player. I'm definitely not interested in running back or quarterback, probably not tight end either. Of course, wide receiver. But I think you always have to have your ears up with O-line, especially as thin as they are. But those guys rarely move at the trade deadline. D-line, which I'm going to get to more here in a minute. I'm not totally ignoring that part. And just the cost of these guys have gotten traded is so low. Maybe just throw a low ball offer at any position. You know what I mean? Just to add them to the mix. But I do want to talk about nose tackles, middle of the defense here a little bit more. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football, from the NFL to college. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over into the online casino and get in a game of blackjack or poker, or they have 150 different slot games you can dig into. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE, all caps, BLEAV, and get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Rob Marsico asks, should we be concerned about the run defense over this past week as we prepare to face the Ravens twice? Historically, the defense has done well against Lamar and company, but after getting carved up by one of the worst running games, I am a bit concerned. I 100% agree with that. And here's where I'm going with it is what teams are doing quite a bit is the Steelers are facing a very high percentage of runs between the tackles. Their linebackers run so well. Their edge guys are so good at securing the edge that a lot of teams are having success between the tackles. And they're taking a step further. They're doing it out of nickel a high percentage of the time. You get 3 receivers on the field. Like the Giants even upped their percentage of 3 receivers on the field to force the Steelers into nickel. Now, I don't think as nose tackles go, Benton is a particularly good run defender. But they get him off the field, and you get Beanie Bishop on. And you also get Roberts off the field, and you get Peyton Wilson on. It just makes you really light. I mean, just think about that 4-man front of Cam, who's been awesome, Ogunjobi, so-so, Watt and Highsmith, as good as they are defending the edge, they're not huge. I mean, just that 4 against 5 offensive linemen, and Queen and Wilson are both lighter, slender people. So teams are running up the middle against the Steelers' nickel package. Now, I would like to see Benton replace Ogunjobi more often in that 4-man front. I think he's just a better player. But back to the other question, I think they need a nose. And they still can scheme you out of your 3-4. But the more and more I watch Benton, big picture, I want him to be Ogunjobi or Cam, not a true nose. And that would make you a lot bigger, tougher. And noses aren't that hard to come by. You know, like I even considered in the back of my head, do you promote Fehoko just to have a space eater in the middle? That's why I brought up Adams. That's why I've kind of kicked it around at the trade deadline. I mean, usually they're not super expensive, run stuffing old school noses. Some teams don't really even use them. So, yeah, I'm concerned. They definitely understand what the Ravens are doing. You know, I mean, they got a lot of what the Giants had success with was scheme based too, and they won the coaching battle on that side. And he's a really good schemer in New York. And I think the familiarity of the division will really help the Steelers too. They know the opponent. They know how they're, they know the players. Cam knows the guy blocking them, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, the run defense to me, particularly in that scenario, is really concerning to me. Joseph Maskery asked, do you think the return of Cam Sutton will be significant in this defense? Kind of already addressed it. I mean, he's really good depth on the outside. I know Beanie everyone loves right now because he's made some interceptions, but Cam's a much better slot than Bishop. So you upgrade there. You also, back to the previous conversation, Cam's going to be much better against the run than Bishop is too. I mean, you don't think about nickel corners being run defenders, but they're very close to the ball a high percentage of the time. So that I think would also help when teams attack you with run in the nickel. Kevin asks, why has 39, Minka, been mostly invisible? It appears that he's 18 plus yards off the line of scrimmage for the majority of snaps, literally invisible to us viewers. He's also continued along the same path as last year with 0 splash plays, figuratively invisible to us viewers as well. And then Matthias asks, will the defense use the bye to become more multiple and dynamic? So far, they've been a good unit purely off high-end talent. All this goes hand in hand. And it's starting to make me a little crazy. You know, they are basing, as you mentioned, way too much of their defensive approach on our checkers are better than your checkers. You know, they lead the league in playing cover 3 with Minka in the middle, deep center by a wide margin. They're very low in blitz. I mean, you pretty much know what defense they're going to run time and time again. Maybe more so than any team in the league, which is hard for me to believe. You know, like I always make fun of the Colts, like, oh, you're just going to play cover 3 like this is the Legion of Boom, 15 years ago. Well, that's exactly what the Steelers are doing. They're just trusting their guys to win. And it's been fine, but they also are stepping up who they're going to play against here too. And I think the bye is a perfect time to reevaluate what you do schematically. And again, like that nickel stuff I mentioned, should Roberts maybe play in the nickel when you can't stop the run? Should you move Benton from nose to D end and find a nose? Should you blitz more? And back to Minka, he's kind of taking the brunt of this because the analogy I always use is he's that awesome goalie. And back to the Legion of Boom, I always said this about Earl Thomas. Maybe you don't see Earl Thomas the whole game. Maybe he's invisible in deep middle. But boy, why is Chancellor making so many plays? Why is Elliott making so many plays? Why is Wagner so aggressive and free? And why is Queen so aggressive and free? Because they trust the goalie behind them. That layer, Paul Coffey or some aggressive defenseman can come up and be an offensive player because he knows he's got the best goalie in the league behind him. You know what I mean? And so the numbers aren't going to be there for Minka. He's better than ever. He's a phenomenal tackler. If you watch the All-22, you're really impressed. Teams don't throw at him on purpose. The splash isn't there, but that's because of usage. So in a way, he's just kind of putting his ego to the side for the betterment of the team. But he still gets sideline to sideline from deep middle. And again, that's my big picture thinking on the defense over the bye. It's time to be more variable. It's time to switch some things up. It's time to address that interior problem versus nickel in particular, but even on early downs. Is Benton best being used as a nose? We don't even see like those cross inside linebacker blitzes we used to see and things like that. Like, I think you need to get past page 1 in the defensive playbook. They run the same thing over and over and over. There you have it. Good stuff today. Give me some reactions. And I urge you, go take a look at their defensive scheme, even on TV. A lot of the guys drop to the exact same spots, and you play cover 3 more than anybody in the league, and it gets figured out. That's just too vanilla. All right, over and out.